I'll talk to three key themes this morning. The first is to give you a bit of an idea of the shape of our defence business and what we do, and perhaps for some of you some clarity around what we don't do and where we don't play in this space. Second point I'll cover off is our heritage, where we've come from and what makes us slightly different to the other participants in the market. And thirdly, I'll try and map out where the growth is coming in defence and how we're well positioned to take advantage of that growth. So in June last year, we formed Downer Defence, which effectively brought together Spotless and Downer's former defence businesses under one single business unit. We've got three business units there, and to Grant's, opening remarks, we've got three business units of scale and three business units that are regarded as market leaders in their particular spaces. We talk about ourselves as being thinkers, builders and maintainers. And so there's, the market is awash with large US defence primes who play very narrow and very deep. We're one of the few providers that plays across an asset life cycle. So I'll talk a little bit about the three businesses and how they relate. The first is our Downer Professional Services business, which is really a white-collar, high-end consulting business. We have two primary clients there. The first is the Capability and Acquisition Group, or CASG. In layman's terms, on behalf of Defence, they are figuring out what kit do we need for the defence of our nation, how does that fit in with the portfolio of kit we've already got, how are we going to get it to communicate and talk to each other, and how are we going to sustain it over the long term. And so we're in a very strong position there. CASG has a panel of only 4 providers that do all of the acquisition work of bringing new military capability into the system, and we are one of those 4 providers on the panel. So extremely well positioned there. The second major client group is the Chief Information Officer Group, which effectively is the comms and technology part of defence. So again, how do you get these disparate bits of kit that you bought from the Europeans and the Americans, how do you get it into a coherent fighting system where it can actually talk to each other, communicate, it's protected from cyber, it's protected in terms of its security, and it's a modern system there. So we've got about 500 of our own guys and girls that are playing in that space, and we've got an additional 500 either SMEs or partner organisations that are working as part of our offering to defence. So a large-sized consulting business in its own right. The second business we operate is our base and estate management business. That is more of a traditional facilities maintenance business, really looking at the sustainment of Defence's built estate. And we're effectively doing asset management, maintenance and running the Defence PPP at HQ JOC there. The third business unit is an estate development and base upgrades business, and that is effectively around how do you refresh, extend and refurbish the defence estate. And we're working at 2 ends of the scale there. At one end of the scale, we're doing programmatic work, so very large programs of effectively very small projects. So give or take, we're doing 300 small upgrades across the defence estate currently with a June 30 completion date on them. So they are quite quick churn and burn. At the other end of the scale, we're doing large multi-year base redevelopments where effectively we take defence, we act as an agent for them, we go through a process of 2 years of optioneering and design to work out what should we do with the estate, and then following Public Works Committee approval we then move into traditionally between a 4 and 7 year construction phase where we procure and manage construction on behalf of Defence to totally refurbish those estates. Perhaps just to help you understand the nature of the businesses exposed to estates, these estates are, you've obviously got Air Force bases, you've got ports, you've got education precincts. You should think of these as like a small country town. They are precincts in their own right, but unlike a small country town, they are effectively a gated community. So any infrastructure from the rest of the world ends at the gate. And so Defence need to look after their own power generation or backup power generation, water, wastewater, roading systems, telecoms, gas, any of that stuff effectively gets looked after by us. So in terms of where we come from, we have a long and proud heritage of working with Defence. We started in the 40s, actually up at Steve's facility at Maryborough, building frigates for the Australian Navy. For 30 years we built ships for the Navy, churning out about 47 of those. We then moved into a couple of decades of building infrastructure across the Defence estate. In the last 30 years we've really pivoted our presence with Defence into this professional services and consulting offering, and also a upgrade and facilities management business. So I guess the kind of takeaways here is, in terms of our role in the Defence ecosystem, we are one of the last remaining Australian sovereign providers. So there's really only us and Lend-Lease. The great Australians that Defence traditionally turned towards, the United Groups, the Leightons, the Transfields, the John Hollands, have all moved into a phase of foreign ownership, and so our ability to bid and position ourselves as a sovereign player, particularly around that kind of strategic advice, is a very strong characteristic for us. And the second takeaway here is really just our role as a partner. A loyal and enduring partner to Defence over 80 years. So again, when we have those conversations from us to them, that they really see us as a long and enduring partner, helping to maintain their capability. One of our cornerstone contracts is our EMOS contract, and EMOS stands for Estate Maintenance and Operating Services. We look after 170 Defence facilities. It's effectively a geographic franchise or patch style contract where we look after everything within the patch of Queensland, the patch of ACT and the patch of southern New South Wales. We provide a very broad range of services, and in layman's terms we do everything on a base other than the soldiering. I said I'd provide some clarity about what we're not doing. So generally, we're not exposed to and we're not involved with, in layman's terms, things that go bang or pop. And so we look after the infrastructure, but we are fundamentally not building or maintaining the warfighting kit. So a very broad range of services that we provide to keep these bases operational and functional. Impressive in their own right, but probably more impressive of just the sheer industrial scale of which we do them. So we do somewhere around 1.3 million planned statutory maintenance tasks a year across the base. In terms of accommodation, we don't just provide accommodation and housekeeping management, we do it for the equivalent of 28 commercial hotels. So everything we do at scale. So you just about can't turn on the TV or radio at the moment without having an announcement around increased spending in Defence. So I'll finish up by talking a little bit about where we play in the market and why we are well positioned to benefit from that growth, and as you kind of hear stuff get announced, how that maps through to us. So effectively there are four major areas of government spending, and I'll run through each of those. So when you hear increased spending around, Defence call it materiel or capability. In layman's terms, it's the kit, it's the ships, the tanks, the planes and the boats. As Defence make increased spending in that area, that all generally will run through the capability and acquisition group, where we're on the panel of four. We work to help Defence work out what they need and how they bring that in. We have very large teams of up to 60 or 100 people working hand in hand with Defence there. So every time the government buys more kit, they'll put an integrated works program together to basically look after that acquisition program, and so we benefit in that form. where you see announcements around the upgrading of bases, and in recent days we've seen the Prime Minister announcing the upgrade to RAF bases, where you see upgrades to barracks and ports and co. We're well positioned there, both in terms of the smaller programmatic works of upgrades, but also the larger managing contractor style upgrades for redevelopments there. And so we are really a market leader in that space. Defence have a huge budget, but have not had a track record of being able to spend all their money. So what they are starting to do is smash together smaller programs into larger mega programs. And we have made a choice to try and position ourselves at the top end of those MC programs that are going to come out to market, which gives you access to bigger parcels of work. It's low risk work under a managing contractor framework, and there are really only 3 or 4 competitors in the market that are capable of bidding and delivering that work. Where you see announcements around the increase in defence personnel numbers, and we've recently seen the Prime Minister commit to a further 18,500 people, or a 30% increase in defence numbers. That flows through to our FM business in terms of all the volumetric stuff we're doing, so it drives an increase in training, accommodation, cleaning and housekeeping, all the accommodation related stuff there. And then the fourth area really, and again around today's theme, is Defence have been slow out of the blocks in terms of decarbonisation, but they have arguably the biggest of the government estates in terms of buildings and assets there. And there will be a significant spend in that area. So I'll just finish on probably a good case study around Defence and its building efficiency improvements. Defence fundamentally have 2 drivers in terms of what they're looking to do in the space. The first driver at the moment is really around energy security and resilience. To be honest, there's a lot of bases where the lights from time to time will flicker, and Defence want to make sure that they have the resilience in terms of backup power so that they are not reliant on the grid, and so there will be a number of opportunities there. And then obviously the second drive will be around net zero and a decarbonisation agenda, and they will be a major instrument of government policy in delivering that. Recently at Russell, which is in the ACT, a large complex that is effectively the home to all the defence chiefs and all the senior defence people. A good example there, we had chillers coming to end of life. By virtue of being the estate maintenance contractor, we can see that coming through the program. It gets handed to us, it's not well scoped. We chose to go away and do some third-party engineering around what were the options, what should we replace it with, what should it look like. We're able to scope that up, put it back to Defence, have them say, yes, no, that's a great idea, that's what we want to do. We want to move to a more modern solution and a more carbon-friendly solution. And then on behalf of Defence, we went out, procured that from the market, oversaw and supervised that work, and have delivered a great outcome in terms of decarbonisation. So I'll finish up just in closing by just reiterating, we have 3 strong businesses in the defence sector. They're all businesses of scale. Each of them in their own market segment are regarded by Defence as being one of the top 2 or 3 providers and a leader in the market. The underlying defence market has very, very strong inherent growth as the government continues to invest in this space. And we are not only well positioned by virtue of our heritage, our market positions to be the beneficiaries of that growth, but we've also been very thoughtful about the commercial models and the parts of the market that we're playing to ensure that we can do that in a low risk and repeatable, reliable manner. So, thank you.